Welcome to this episode of the Talent Forge, where we are shaping the future of training and development. I am joined by special guest Jon Sabes. Welcome to the show, Jon.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here.
Now, you have an incredible story, and I would love to tell it for you, but since you're here, I figured I'd ask you, why don't you introduce yourself to the audience and tell them a little bit about how you got into this talent development space?
Sure. Well, I guess I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've been kind of doing entrepreneurial stuff for almost 2 decades now and built several companies and had some just incredible success and some massive challenges, as every entrepreneur
As we
really
all do.
does.
Yeah.
Yeah, so my journey's no exception to the rule. And I guess yeah, I've had the chance to lead teams and develop teams and have teams fall away from me and teams fall in behind me. So, it's definitely such an incredible part of the journey. So yeah, my journey as a serial entrepreneur in financial services over 2 decades. I've built several companies, gone public, been listed, had exits. I've done a lot. I'm always in the sort of longevity space, financial services space, that which kind of developed this sort of, again, this career into healthy longevity and financial services, life insurance, annuities, financial products and services. So that's kind of my specialty. I also got into molecular biomarkers of health and longevity through that as a tech with a tech spinoff on that. So I became sort of a self-learned expert in epigenetic aging, gene expression, and how does this beautiful body called the human, actually function.
Oh, now you're speaking my language when we start getting into the genetics, epigenetics, and all the fun stuff of neurobiology and all those different impacts. But one of the things that really attracted me to having this conversation with you was partially from your personal philosophy. I really loved when I read just an excerpt. Success in life comes from small, consistent efforts made upstream that lead to significant downstream effects, whether in health, wealth, or personal fulfillment. And you apply that through your daily life, through disciplined regimen that includes journaling, strength training, healthy eating, and sauna. I'm a big sauna fan myself. I knew we'd get along, and especially, in these northern climates, it's a necessity. So I want to talk about that first, if we can, Jon. What do you mean by these small, consistent efforts made upstream?
Yeah, when we talk about small, again, how do we swallow the whale? One bite at a time. So how do we affect this dream life that we're all on our own journey, and we all want to build this beautiful life of our own design. And the way we're going to do that, right, is only by small little increments of betterment, right? And so if we attack our goals and objectives in life in small bits, right, you get there. And so that's kind of this idea where I think too often we have these big dreams, these big goals, and we feel like we so quickly can get disappointed in the progress because it takes a long time to accomplish big things, and so we it's much easier to accomplish smaller things. And if you direct your thoughts and your actions towards those smaller things in these positive directions, whether they be in your business and your mental attitude, whether your own health, what I like to say is you increase the odds, you increase the probability that you get where you want. And that's where I'm writing to. So it's these small actions, and you have to kind of program your subconscious so this stuff becomes almost automatic in these directional habits towards building a life of your dreams. And that's kind of what I'm talking about.
And see, I love that because in so many cases, especially in the field of talent development, immediately all right, what do we need to fix? We need to fix communication. And communication can be, especially in the business world, that is the Iron Man, which you've run five. Impressive, by the way. But like that is the Iron Man. And when we're developing a training or when we're developing some kind of learning opportunity, it seems to me that we're always thinking about the top of the mountain and we're not thinking about the steps that it takes to get to the top of the mountain. So let me ask you this question. All of us have these large ambitions, these large goals, How are you able to essentially keep yourself focused on the daily habits? When you're looking up at the top of the mountain, it's got to be something that everybody, when we experience it, we look at our goals and just like, oh my gosh, it's so far off. Retirement is so far off. Success, communication is so far off. How have you personally been able to kind of keep yourself in that present moment to be focused on those smaller things that are going to make a long-term impact?
Yeah, I think a couple of things to contribute there. First of all, I'm not as disciplined as I might look. I don't want to. I have all the failings that probably every other listener has out there as well. So don't feel like you need to have some sort of super self-discipline to accomplish these things. You mentioned Ironman, and I have done 5 Ironman triathlon events, and I've always was amazed
Incredible.
by what we call the midnight finishers. You have to finish Ironman by midnight, and otherwise they cut the finish off. And I was always amazed by these bodies that would finish an Ironman, where you just would look at them like, how could you possibly, they just don't look like they could do it. So my point, I guess, with this is you can accomplish so much more than you think you can. And so how do you get yourself in that rhythm? And that's what we're talking about, sort of daily rhythm. So one of the things that I certainly have relied on over the course of my career has been journaling, and specifically a type of journaling, prompt journaling. I developed this prompt journaling after I listened to Tim Ferriss many years ago talking about the 5 minute journal. I went to buy that journal. It was about an inch and a half thick and, an 8.5 by 11. I traveled, 3 days a week. And so I developed this little sort of a succinct little prompt journal that would sit in my breast pocket. It would travel with me all the time. It had 30 entries, a month's worth. And so I really do believe in this idea of prompt journaling, of journaling daily thoughts, and what do you keep your mind, attuned to, because that's what you're going to attract in your life.
Mhm.
And so you need to keep that constantly. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I write, well, I want to swim, run, lift, and I want to do this, and this. And then I go the next day, I'm like, shit, I didn't get any of those. But that's okay. I got another chance to do it, and it's okay. So I'll say this, which is I would really encourage folks to do some form of prompt journaling. It's a different type of journaling, and it really, it's my secret life hack. The other thing is set your environment up for so that the default behavior becomes a little bit easier. And by that, again, simple example, well, I want to live healthier. I want to eat better. Well, if your pantry's full of salty, sugary foods, you really can't fault yourself from getting in there and gorging yourself out and you're binging some Netflix and this. I mean, come on. So you got to set that environment up so that default is just a little bit easier. And that really goes to the workplace too. I know a lot of folks are listening in the workplace. I mean, get rid of the candy in the freaking shop, and get rid of the sodas. I mean, you can't blame anyone for doing these things. So it's just, again, so 2 things, which is that daily habit, and then setting up your environment so the default, the healthier, the better choice, whatever that choice is easier. Make it easier for yourself, because we all have failings in our own self-discipline, and we need a little help.
I love that I love that you bring that up because I'll be honest with you. So I just recently had some friends, from longtime friends. They came and visited me here, and we had a nice, kind of guys' weekend together. And they brought chips, and they brought, all kinds of goodies. And when they left, I'm like, y'all have to take these with you. And they're like, we brought them, like, no, you've got to take these with you because if you leave them here, I'm going to eat them. I don't buy that literally because I know that it's 10 o'clock at night. I'm hungry. Oh, there's this bag of corn chips just sitting right there. I'm just gonna, I'll have a couple. Yeah, right. Right. So I want to get into this environmental design a little bit more. But before I do that, so the prompt journaling. when you're practicing this, is it more of like I'm just going to let my mind, you've got a prompt, whatever those prompts are. Could you give an example of what maybe some of the prompts might look like? And then do you just let yourself free flow? Do you have an intentionality of like, hey, I'm going to look back at this 6 months from now? What does that experience look like for you, John?
Yeah, it's very simple, and it's short. I mean, it's a tiny little booklet. And the daily things, I just, there's a couple reminders in the morning. Whether I do these things or not, it's not all that I'm make my bed, drink some water, get 10 reps in. Like those are little check marks I could make. I mean, I love this story. If you can't make your bed, if you and this is all about self-care and your own place of really, I'll call worship. Where you live is where you practice your life. So
Mhm.
self-care is the first step in caring for others. If your place is in shambles, then how can you expect others to help others? And so I really, you know, I walk the walk, I talk the talk, and I really will come down hard on people who I can sniff it out pretty quick if they're not. So, what's my top three things for the day? Just list three things real quick. What I want to do today. That could be really simple. It could be anything you want. What are my goals for the today would be great if. Today I'm grateful for. Today I affirm myself that what I'm going to be a great father. I'm going to be a great leader. I'm going to kill it at this client event. I'm going to really impart value to the people I'm training. Whatever that is, affirm something. You want to self-affirm before you do what it is you do. And then really it's a day of reflection, which is you can marvel every day at something. I was marveled by what? And today could have been better if, right? We always could have been, you don't have to beat yourself up, but I could have
What
said
can
that
you
differently.
learn from today? Or yeah.
Yeah, yeah, I could
Okay.
have, so it's just a reminder. So it's very simple. And then there's some little remind me notes, go to the store, pick up my mulch, plant my perennials, whatever it is. And then at the end of 30 days, there's a 30-day reflection. And there's some quotes and there's the preamble to the Constitution and there's instructions. So, it's very simple. You just really, it's bite size. There's only a little place to write, so you can't ramble on and on. Although some people, my friends who have used these, start scribbling all over the thing. It's your self coach. I know we talked about having coaches and being coaches, and a lot of us are coaches, but this is my self coach. So when I look at that, I'm like, oh, there he is telling me to do this, yelling me. I know I perform better when my coach is yelling at me. I know when I look at that little, I'm like, oh yeah, I should have done this. I could have done that better. That's just your self coach. So you're just self coaching yourself to what I like to say, keep your mind attuned to that which you want to bring into your life. Because if you don't do that, others are tuning your mind to what they want. And so you either focus your mind and your actions toward your life, or you will be impacted and you will be moved by others.
So now you've turned this into the Pursuit of Happiness prompt journal, which I did receive a copy, and thank you for that. And it's something that I have started to do, and we'll put the link to that in the show notes. So if you are interested in the Pursuit of Happiness prompt journal, that's definitely something to kind of elevate your daily habits, which leads to that long-term success. Now, one of the things that I want to chat about is this environmental design. Now, you've led teams, you've helped them. And as a visionary and as an entrepreneur, I know sometimes, and I see this a lot in entrepreneurship. So I actually teach entrepreneurship. I've spoken at a number of entrepreneurship conferences about behaviors. And one of the big challenges seems to be that a lot of times the founder, the creator, the owner ends up having this like large, expansive, beautiful vision. And in some cases, it can be very difficult, or I've at least seen it be very, very difficult for them to have, to really kind of get, I guess, the team to align, to really align. And I'm not saying a little align, right? Like, yeah, of course. Oh, wow, this is a great idea. Yeah, this is awesome. But to not necessarily get to that depth. So when you're talking about environmental design and we're thinking about leading a team that maybe is on the same page, maybe they're not fully on the same page, what are some of the ways in which case you've used environmental design to maybe elevate your team and to elevate their ability to essentially accomplish the mission?
Great question. And I've had instances where, the team was absolutely, we were locked. And then I've had instances where the team fell away and, convinced the board I should be fired. It's like, what? So, and it's a very interesting question. I guess I would say, from one of the ways in which I believe I did it is, and it is sort of, as you mentioned, in pursuit of happiness prompt journal. We all want to be happy in life. Every single person wants to be happy in life. It is, as Benjamin Franklin said, the thing we are all in pursuit of. And so it's sort of like foundational to our country and the creation of America and creating this ability, these inalienable rights to pursue happiness. And so recognizing that everyone wants to be happy, recognizing everyone wants to succeed. I think where I've succeeded the most is when I've created an environment that speaks to that
Mm.
and creates an environment where I actually teach it, where I actually communicate what are those principles upon which happiness is built, and how can you, as a member of this team, pursue and seek and achieve your own happiness. And I think that's where I've succeeded, and where I've failed, I don't think I've done that as well. So when this entrepreneur who's mercurial and can be very impatient and sees things, and why don't you guys doing this with a sense of urgency? I think I think if the team knows you better and knows that you are really teaching them how to achieve their own goals in life, then they'll come along with you a little bit harder than maybe if you don't.
No, and I love that because I think that it's that autonomy and that sort of independence that people feel when they're pursuing maybe some kind of like higher level function or some kind of higher level, something bigger than themselves, something that's creating that legacy. But if it's micromanaged, or if it's one of those situations where it's like you must do X, Y, and Z this way, that's where I often see that going off the rails. Um, from an environmental perspective, one of the things that I've always really enjoyed is bringing into some of the conversation of what would you like to, what do you want out of this? Because, a lot of people I think initially, well, a paycheck. Well, yeah, of course, but what do you as an individual want? The paycheck will run out unless you're investing it and obviously making that, but what is it that you want? And even finding some of those different spaces or kind of innovating ways to bring some of those desires into the workplace, seemingly for me, at least with the team that I have, when they tell me, hey, I want to learn this, all right, well, we're going to start doing that. Let's see what that looks like for you. So kind of creating that space for openness now in and I'm going to ask you this because I'm going to ask you this as I perceive you as an expert in this space. What is happiness to you? How would you define it? What does it look like? And I know it might be different for other people, but I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on that.
Yeah, I mean, I would happiness is. I'll tell you what, it's not. It's not a destination.
Hmm.
It's not hedonic pursuits. So hedonic are just sort of self-indulgent, narcissistic behaviors. Happiness is the journey, it's the experience, and it's virtuous. They're virtuous activities that lead to everyone getting more of what they want. It's a place of abundance. It's not a place of scarcity, and it's a place of freedom because, like you said, everyone's definition for happiness is just a little bit different. But I would just say it's the journey that we're on, and I would suggest that we're all on that journey, whether we are consciously aware of it or not. And so sometimes, and that's why I don't micromanage people. I consider, I know you're on a journey to be happy. Whether you know it or not is a whole nother story. But I know that you've chosen coffee over tea, AC/DC over Beethoven, a Ferrari over a Corvette, because these things bring you happiness. You are consistently making choices to bring more happiness into your life. So how can I help you do more of that? And by doing that, I'm going to give you in the employment context, I'm giving you a paycheck. I'm creating prosperity for you and your family. Like that is just an overriding requirement for happiness is to have some level of prosperity. I mean, you mentioned as a paycheck, but yeah, I'm providing prosperity and I'm creating an opportunity for you to grow, not only here, but way beyond here. This won't be the last job you ever have. By, but if I can teach you skills, I can give you life skills, life changing skills and a place on which you can take for the rest of your life and add value while you're here, then I've done my job, you know? And that's how I've gotten the best performance out of my teams when they know I'm doing that. And sometimes, you know, that's kind of, you know, radical honesty, radical transparency, but just, you know, it is what it is.
It seems to me that there's a lot of wisdom in the concept of the pursuit of happiness at that point in time rather than the destination of happiness. So talk to me about this because I know what some people could be thinking. All right. And I'm going to put this in the context of the Iron Man. There's no way I would feel happy punishing my body day in, day out to prepare for something like the Ironman triathlon. And I see people in some cases where whatever their goal is, the goal is what keeps them going, not the daily habits or not the things that's getting them to that. How do you balance that motivation of sort of staying goal focused, but also enjoying the journey of sometimes pain, sometimes discomfort, because to grow, we got to step outside of our comfort zone. So some people don't look at that and say, well, that pursuit, it's the end game that's going to make me happy. But how do you shift that? How do you balance that? And is there a balance between that sort of pain during the pursuit and the experience of accomplishing or even sometimes failing? What are your thoughts on that, John?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's well documented that, you know, anytime anyone gets to any goal, a meaningful goal, they are quickly find that becomes very empty, you know, and so it is the journey, and when there's pain, you know, life unless you're the exception to the rule, and I like to speak to most of us. I know there's outliers,
Sure.
but if you're like me, you're going to have lots of challenges in your life. You're going to have some pain in your life. I mean, it's just really difficult to get through life without like massive challenges and pain. So that's just part of life, and you need to understand that those are opportunities to grow and to persevere. The road continues beyond this moment. You know, this too will pass. And so, like, just understanding, I think Ironman for me, anyways, was just a way to understand that the road's going to continue when it felt hard, when it felt, I can't keep going. Why, you know, and but just keep going with one foot in front of the other. And I think whether it's a 5K or 10K or wherever you're at in your own journey, I think those are terrific opportunities to kind of test that mental resiliency of like, this is hard, but I'm just going to keep going. And you will get to the end of the 5K. You will get to the end of the 10K, you know. And so when you learn that, it really strengthens you in the rest of your journey because you're going to face it, whether it's in your professional life, your personal life, if you're like me, all of the above. But that's okay. You know, again, it's this individual journey we're on, and you're well served to test your resiliency and just to keep going. And once you achieve the goal, you keep going. You find a new one.
Yeah, I love that. So, all right, let's kind of take this into the realm, a little bit of the realm of neuroscience and psychology here. I'm thinking, when you read something like Thinking Fast and Thinking Slow by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, we know that the brain has a lot of cognitive shortcuts. We have a number of different ways in which we have created the conditions of bias. And one of those biases is against, or I guess it would be more towards, instant gratification. And I think a lot of us live our lives in this space of instant gratification, even though it's probably fairly well known now that if I save money today, I'll have way more later on down my life. But that's still a big thing. So I'm going to put this in the context of wealth, prosperity, essentially financial success, because I know that that's one of the areas that you lead and coach in. So From a, let's just say, a generalized, we know that kids who are able to delay gratification for for an extended period of time, measure them out over the course of their lives, they are more successful. They are than the person that's going to take the dollar today versus $10 10 weeks from now. And there's all kinds of different algorithmic behavioral economics behind, how big is the reward in the distance, how long is the distance, and so on and so forth. So without getting into all of that complexity, how can we better prepare ourselves to avoid the concept of instant gratification and impulsiveness? And journaling is obviously one thing that we can do to, be satisfied in our daily life and have gratitude for where we're at now. But let's be real. If you tell me I'm going to give you $100 today, or I'll give you $200 a year from now, most people are going to want the $100 today, even though the other is a good bet. What are your thoughts?
Isn't that the marshmallow experiment? The kids
Oh
with the
yeah.
marshmallows. That's a classic. It's a great
Oh
one.
yeah.
The kids who could delay not taking the marshmallow.
I'll give you, and for anybody that doesn't know, is I'll give you one marshmallow right now, or if you can wait, you'll get two marshmallows at a significant, at a later point in time. And they've measured everything from in an hour, I'll give you two marshmallows, to a day, I'll give you two marshmallows, to a week, I'll give you two marshmallows. And the longer the distance, the less likely that they're going to delay the gratification. The larger the reward can impact how long they're willing to wait. I'll give you 100 marshmallows 3 days from now. Okay, well, I'm definitely going to take the 100 3 days from now than the one right now. So there's all kinds of permutations on that. And they've done that with different experiments too, with money, with investments and things to see how adults react to it. And the reality is most of us are wired to take what we can get today. So how do we avoid that? Or how do we teach people to avoid that?
Yeah, I think the one way, again, I write a lot about this. Again, it's Longevity Financial Partners is my latest venture. I'm in this whole longevity space. I've been here for a while. Um, I think the key is, and you've touched on it, is thinking greater than self. First of all, I mean, you have to think greater than self. If you're not thinking greater than self, then why not? Then why not take the marshmallow? Then why not take the $100, run over to the liquor store and hit it? I mean, like,
Right.
so you have to expand your scope of sort of your view of the it, meaning it's just not me. And even though you may think, well, it kind of still is just me, isn't it? Yes, but there are, when you take, call it negative steps, you're causing pain on others. You're creating, I'll call waves of negativity within your life. And so one way, sort of just on a daily basis, is just we'll go back to that virtue versus hedonic behavior. Opt for the virtuous choice, because it's gonna create positive ripples around you. But at the end of the day, right, it's this longevity. How long we are on this planet is the most finite asset we have. And when we are 70, and when we are 80, and God willing, when we're 90 or even 100, right? I just covered 30, 40 plus years of life. And and you really want to think of your older self. Think of what you could do today, because you're going to be that older self. Okay, God, you're going to be some version of that. And when you're on your deathbed, you want to be able to look back and say, my life has been a dream. And you really, and that's where you want to be. And so think about maybe that, even if it's just you, your older self. What I like to phrase it, what would you tell your younger self to do today? So that when you met your 80 or 90-year-old self, he or she gives you a big hug and goes, man, thanks for doing that, because it made a difference over here. And you will be reliant on others. You will have less energy. You will be frail. And so think about even yourself, and think about how you'll impact others in that phase of life. And maybe that will make those healthier, better choices a little bit more less painful. And because you can see it's just about you now, and how you're going to feel, and how the people you love are going to feel about you.
Well, and I think that really that I mean that lands for me and resonates, right? Most organizations, one of the things that they want to do is, hey, this is how your behavior contributes to the overall good. Whether that's through mission, vision, values, or how your work on a daily basis ends up impacting the end consumer. So this is something that we teach in organizational development too, is your behaviors at that sort of micro level end up having a macro effect that's much larger than what it is. So keeping that in mind can kind of say, hey, even though I'm just pushing this button, by pushing this button, that's actually saving somebody's life at the other end of this, production line or whatever else that is. So that really lands and that makes a lot of sense. As we're trying to what are some of the big challenges that you've experienced in helping people see that long term? Like, what are some of the blocks or barriers that maybe have come up as a resistance point to, yeah, John, I mean, that all makes sense, but I got to watch out for number one because I see a lot of watching out for number one nowadays, especially with workforce engagement and everything else. So what are some of those barriers and what have you done to maybe overcome those amongst your teams?
That's a big challenge. And that's a really hard thing to get people to look past, looking out for themselves, only themselves. Gosh, I don't know that I have a solve for you right here on this podcast, but I guess, it's look, when you take care of yourself, I'll go back to this. When you take care of yourself, when you do self-care, okay, versus self-harm, when you work really hard at your job and do it really well, even though it's just for you because you want to get that job, you want to get that promotion, you're contributing to the organization in a phenomenal sort of way. So as long as you're not doing it, I would say with negativity and you're beating, you know, you're doing things. I'll use this hedonic sort of analogy. You're backstabbing. It's fine. I'm fine with someone throwing it down and working their ass off and being like, yeah, I'm getting that job. Sorry. So like I hate that. As an entrepreneur, I hate organizations who will say, well, he's working too hard, right? He's making me look bad. Like that to me is just like, oh my God, that sort of organization is the one I'm just like,
Yeah.
so I think it's okay, to be, it's about me. It's all about me. It's about my prosperity. But I'd also say it's about my health. It's about my mental health. And it's about the mental health of those that I'm around. So it's not okay to do that and create harm, or not, you know, click a wire or something that causes some product to have a malfunction. And so it's within that context, but I say go for it, man. Just go for it. It is about you, but you can do that in a way that is creating positivity around everything you do. So I don't think those two things need to be, you know, at odds. I think people misunderstand that because they get in these organizations. Well, he's working too hard, and he's competing too hard. We're like, well, that's kind of what it's about, at the end of the day.
Well, and I like that. And I think what I'm hearing inside of that message is uh, do it for you, but also be a decent human while you're doing it.
Yeah,
Cause
yeah.
no harm,
No
but
one,
at the
no,
same time, and I think that would actually resolve a lot of the sort of like when I see selfishness or I see a lot of the sort of like I'm just in it for me type thing. I think it's because of some of that. I really don't care about what impact I'm having on everybody else around me. So if I'm going to draw that insight out of you, it's more of a balance. It's like, yeah, do it for you, but recognize that by doing it for you, you're also should be contributing to everybody else around you. And I think that goes to your abundance mentality thought.
yeah. If you're doing, look, no one likes a dirty player to use a sport analogy. No one likes that dirty player on the team, right? But everyone loves a Michael Jordan. Even though he's so hard to deal with, and if you're a high performer, I mean, you just got to acknowledge performance, and but don't be dirty about it. Don't be mean. There's no reason to be mean.
No.
Being mean is not a good thing, Don't allow your mind to go there.
So, John, I would ask this. If in the in a concept of scarcity and abundance, when we start to think about it, I think most people want to be in that mindset of abundance. But then all of a sudden we start to get that tinge of, but if John wins, then that means I'm going to lose. Or if you get this promotion, then I'm not going to get this promotion. How do you help coach people sort of away from that perspective?
Yeah, again, that's a tough one. I mean, you just have to recognize that we live in just an incredible, abundant world. I mean, if you're in the United States and you're working here or North America, I mean, you have so much abundance, it is ridiculous.
Hmm.
Okay, you have so much opportunity, it is ridiculous. And so I would say if you're feeling that way, that's more about you. If that person got the promotion, I mean, let's hopefully they really did deserve it because they were the Michael Jordan. It was clear.
Sure.
There was the law of contrast. They were the ones who did it. They sacrificed their weekends, their this, their that. They gave it all. So I mean, you just got to understand that, and resolve that if you want more, if you want that, you have to give more. Life's a series of trade-offs. And maybe you want it, but you're not willing to do what it takes to get it. Or maybe you're just creating yourself up for the next opportunity. Maybe that wasn't the right thing. So again, this goes back to the road always continues. This is
Yeah.
not probably going to be the last job you ever have. So you have these opportunities to learn, to set yourself up for success. And I'm a big, work like hell, just you got to give it. And I don't care what job you're doing. There is so much opportunity and creativity. And I like to say it's just, the cleanliness of your office reflects in the mind of your customer. I mean, just clean the office, just do it. Not because
Yeah.
anyone asked you, just do it because it looks better. I mean, so there's just so much to do. And I guess it's maybe people don't want to hear that, but that's what the real world takes.
No, I love that because I think it's that shift into a growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset, right? Is, hey, if I didn't get this, what could I have done differently? What can I learn from this experience? How will I get it the next time that this comes around? And really kind of thinking about what are my next steps? Because you're right. I've had the fortunate privilege to travel to about 39 different countries. And when you talk about opportunities, especially in North America, they are abundant. There is definitely opportunities. No one's stuck where they're at. But it does require a growth mindset to try to see those opportunities or see how I could fit in the future, even if I'm not there right at this moment. John, this has been a really insightful conversation. If our audience wanted to get in touch with you and hear more about the things that you're doing or into some of the different products, how would they reach out to you?
Sure, Jay. It's Jon, Sabes, Sabes.com, jonsabes.com. I'm on all the social media platforms. You can engage with me there. My book is Healthy, Wealthy Longevity, talks about health and longevity and what does aging look like. And it also talks about prosperity and being an entrepreneur and working and then self-mastery. So if these things, you want to learn more, I highly encourage you to pick up the book. It's on Amazon and engage with me. However, the prompt journals are on my website and love to come back, Jay. Do it for 30, 60 days. Let's see how it worked.
I love it. So I will definitely be taking that up and committing to that. So I'm making that commitment right here, right now on the Talent Forge, John, and we'll see where we land. But I just want to say thank you because it's always refreshing to have a conversation with somebody that has that sort of growth mentality, that sort of forward thinking. Where are we going to land and what are we going to learn along the way? Because I think in a lot of cases we become so destination focused that we forget about all of the incredible experience and learning opportunities through the pursuit of whatever it is, the pursuit of goals, pursuit of happiness, or pursuit of the Iron Man. Wow, it's still impressive to me. So I just want to say thank you for coming on and sharing your perspective and giving us some insights into that space.
Thanks, Jay. Great to be here. Love the podcast. Appreciate you.
Thank you. And thank you, audience, for tuning into this episode of the Talent Forge, where together we're shaping the future of training and development.